Question 1. In the context of deploying a multi-tier application across multiple data centers, Sarah's team decides to implement VXLAN for seamless workload mobility. They notice improved flexibility, but network engineer is concerned about potential overhead. Which factor most directly explains the benefit VXLAN provides in this scenario? A. It enables Layer 2 connectivity across Layer 3 boundaries using encapsulation. B. It encrypts all traffic automatically between endpoints. C. It eliminates the need for IP addressing in overlay networks. D. It functions as direct replacement for EGP routing protocols. Answer. Correct answer. A. VXLAN allows workloads in different physical locations to appear as if they are on the same Layer 2 segment, even across Layer 3 boundaries, by encapsulating Ethernet frames into UP packets. This encapsulation supports larger-scale virtual networks without re-architecting the physical topology. The approach is crucial for seamless migration and scalability in multi-data center environments, ensuring workloads maintain network identity while preserving existing IP addressing schemes. Question 2. Which of the following best explains why James chooses to implement a distributed firewall EDW in his NSX-enabled environment for a multi-tenant healthcare application? A. It primarily accelerates WAN performance for inter-office links. B. It enforces security policies at the virtual NIC level for east-west traffic. C. It dynamically replaces traditional VPN tunnels between data centers. D. It is solely responsible for translating private to public IP addresses. Answer. Correct answer. B. The distributed firewall operates at the hypervisor kernel and applies policies directly to the virtual NICs of workloads, enabling granular micro-segmentation for east-west traffic. This approach reduces attack surfaces within the data center, particularly in multi-tenant or regulated industries like healthcare, where strict isolation is critical. By operating close to the workloads, it ensures consistent policy enforcement without relying solely on perimeter devices. Question 3. According to recent studies, when Maria configures multiple logical switches in NSX, she notices that workloads can communicate only if certain conditions are met. Which factor is essential for establishing communication between workloads on different logical switches? A. Deployment of a logical router to route traffic between segments. B. Assigning identical VXLAN network identifiers to both switches. C. Removing all default security policies applied to logical ports. D. Using the same VLAN ID for both logical switches in the underlay. Answer. Correct answer. C. A logical router is required to route traffic between isolated broadcast domains represented by different logical switches. Each logical switch corresponds to a unique VLAN network identifier, ensuring separation. Without a logical router, workloads on different logical switches cannot communicate unless bridged to the same physical segment, which defeats isolation principles. This structure enforces clean separation and controlled interconnection. Question 4. From the perspective of centralized administration, Alex wants to streamline NSX deployment across multiple clusters. Which role does NSX Manager play in ensuring consistent configuration and control? A. Acts as the single point of configuration, deployment, and management for NSX components. B. It replaces all vCenter functionalities for managing virtual machines. C. It automatically tunes underlay hardware without administrator input. D. It solely handles data plane forwarding decisions in real time. Answer. Correct answer. A. NSX Manager serves as the centralized management plane for deploying, configuring, and monitoring NSX components. It integrates with vCenter to map logical constructs to physical resources and enforces policies across the environment. This centralization is vital for consistency, reducing administrative overhead and enabling scalability across multiple clusters without requiring per-host manual configuration. Question 5. In light of recent developments, a security audit at Lisa's organization reveals the need for dynamic application of firewall rules to groups of virtual machines. How does Service Composer address this requirement effectively? A. By configuring static VLAN assignments on physical switches. B. By leveraging load balancing algorithms to distribute traffic. C. By integrating with orchestration tools to automate OS deployment. D. By grouping VMS dynamically and applying security policies based on attributes. Answer. Correct answer. D. Service Composer enables administrators to define security groups based on VM attributes such as tags, names, or OS types. Policies are applied automatically as VMs meet the group criteria, ensuring dynamic and consistent protection. This approach simplifies security administration, supports automation, and reduces the chance of human error, particularly in dynamic environments where workloads frequently change. Question 6. Taking into account a sudden loss of connectivity between two workloads on the same logical switch, Rog suspects an NSX misconfiguration. Which first diagnostic step would provide the most targeted insight? A. Verifying the MTU size on the physical switches. B. Checking the VTEP configuration and connectivity between hosts. C. Restarting ONSX manager services immediately. D. Replacing the logical switch with a new instance. Answer. Correct answer. B. Verifying VTEP configuration and connectivity is crucial because VTEPs handle VXLAN encapsulation and decapsulation between hosts. A misconfigured or unreachable VTEP can interrupt communication even if workloads appear to be on the same logical switch. This targeted check can quickly identify whether the issue is in the overlay transport layer rather than the application or underlay network. Question 7. While examining a hybrid cloud migration plan, Mark realizes he must decouple application networking from the underlying physical infrastructure. Which core principle of network virtualization supports this goal? A. Abstracting the physical network to create logical software-based network components. B. Assigning each VM a dedicated physical NIC for maximum throughput. C. Implementing direct layer 1 connections between all application servers. D. Disabling overlay networks to ensure deterministic routing. Answer. Correct answer. A network abstraction allows the creation of logical switches, routers, and firewalls independent of the underlying hardware. This decoupling enables flexible workload placement, rapid reconfiguration, and consistent policy enforcement across diverse physical infrastructures, which is essential for hybrid cloud strategies. It allows teams to design network topologies that adapt to business needs without being limited by hard constraints. Question 8. By comparing pre and post-implementation metrics, Emily observes reduced lateral movement of threats in her NSX environment, which feature primarily drives this security improvement. A. Implementing redundant physical firewalls in the perimeter. B. Using micro-segmentation to enforce workload-level policies. C. Increasing the number of WANs in the underlay network. D. Deploying a global load balancer for traffic distribution. Answer. Correct answer. B. Micro-segmentation applies granular security policies directly at the workload level, allowing administrators to restrict east-west traffic within the data center. By enforcing rules between individual workloads or groups, it significantly reduces the risk of threat propagation. This approach transforms the security model from a perimeter-focused strategy to a distributed one aligned with zero-trust principles. Question 9. Under the assumption that multiple logical switches must connect workloads across different clusters, what role does a transport zone play in achieving this connectivity? A. It defines the scope of logical switch connectivity across clusters. B. It manages cost policies for all NSX network segments. C. It stores the configuration for physical underlay switches. D. It acts as a dedicated routing table for each logical switch. Answer. Correct answer. A transport zone determines which hosts or clusters can participate in a given logical switch, effectively defining the broadcast domain's reach. By configuring transport zones appropriately, administrators can enable or restrict connectivity between workloads across different parts of the environment. This logical segmentation ensures scalable, manageable network designs in large NSX deployments. Question 10. The fundamental question is how NSX integrates with vSphere to provide advanced network virtualization capabilities. Which statement best reflects this integration? A. NSX operates independently of a vSphere and shares no management components. B. NSX leverages vCenter Server for mapping virtual networks to virtual infrastructure. C. NSX replaces XC host's networking stack with its own proprietary hypervisor. D. NSX requires dedicated physical appliances for all its core functions. Answer. Correct answer. B. NSX integrates tightly with vCenter server, using it to map logical constructs such as switches, routers, and firewalls to the underlying virtual infrastructure. This relationship allows seamless management, policy enforcement, and visibility through familiar vSphere interfaces. The integration streamlines operations for administrators already skilled in vSphere while enhancing capabilities with robust net virtualization features. Question 11. Throughout the course of designing a multi-site network, Priya notices that overlay networks enable rapid reconfiguration, but her colleague warns about underlay dependency. Which statement best explains their relationship in NSX? A. Overlays replace underlays entirely, removing the need for physical infrastructure. B. Overlays rely on underlays for physical packet transport between endpoints. C. Underlays serve as backup paths if overlay tunnels fail. D. Underlays dynamically configure overlay logical switches without administrator input. Answer. Correct answer. B. Overlay networks provide a logical abstraction of the underlying infrastructure, encapsulating traffic for flexibility and scalability. However, the physical underlay is still responsible for transporting encapsulated packets between endpoints. If the underlay experiences issues such as high latency, packet loss, or MTU mismatches, the overlay's performance suffers, making reliable underlay essential for stable net virtualization. Question 12. Considering the evidence, Martin integrates NSX with Realize automation to speed up application deployments. Which capability does this integration directly enhance? A. Automated provisioning of networking and security services alongside workloads. B. Full replacement of manual firewall policy creation for external traffic. C. Dynamic reallocation of EPU resources to virtual machines. D. Removal of all dependency on physical data center equipment. Answer. Correct answer. A. By integrating NSX with Realize automation, organizations can embed network and security provisioning directly into the application deployment workflow. This means virtual networks, firewalls, load balancers, and security groups are created automatically when workloads are provisioned. It eliminates manual post-deployment steps, reduces errors, and ensures consistent policy application across the environment. Question 13. During the process of scaling out an NSX environment, Leela notices that some logical switches span more hosts than others. She wants to maintain performance as tenant numbers grow. Which factor is most critical to monitor? A. The number of LAN IDs available in the physical network. B. The capacity and throughput of the NSX controller cluster. C. The redundancy level of distributed logical routers. D. The MTU settings across both overlay and underlay networks. Answer. Correct answer. D. VXLAN encapsulation adds overhead to packet size, requiring consistent and sufficient MTU settings across all physical and virtual networking components. Mismatched MTUs can lead to fragmentation or packet loss, directly affecting scalability and application performance. Proactively aligning MTU values across underlay and overlay paths ensures reliable high-throughput communication in large NSX deployments. Question 14. Based on the information Omar's NSX deployment experiences inconsistent routing updates across hosts, he suspects an issue with the control plane. Which component should he examine first? A. Distributed firewall kernel modules. B. The NSX controller cluster for synchronization issues. C. Physical core switches in the underlay. D. Service composer policy mappings. Answer. Correct answer. C. The NSX controller cluster maintains the control plane functions, distributing network state and routing information to hypervisors. If hosts are receiving inconsistent updates, examining the controller cluster's status, connectivity, and quorum is vital. Any disruption in controller communication can cause discrepancies in forwarding tables, leading to inconsistent routing behavior across the environment. Question 15. Among the various use cases for the NSX H Services Gateway, Kevin needs to provide secure external connectivity and advanced services to workloads. Which function directly fulfills this need? A. Acting as a logical gateway for north-south traffic with services like NAT and VPN. B. Serving as the centralized log collector for firewall events. C. Providing layer 1 switching for hypervisor interconnectivity. D. Automatically provisioning VLANs on physical switches. Answer. Correct answer. A. The NSX Edge Services Gateway enables connectivity between virtual networks and the physical network or internet, handling north-south traffic. It offers advanced services such as NAT, VPN, and load balancing, providing a secure and managed interface for external communications. This design centralizes service delivery while integrating seamlessly into the virtual network fabric. Question 16. In the absence of strict policy enforcement of financial institutions, NSX deployment becomes prone to configuration drift. Which approach best maintains policy consistency? A. Using static VLAN mapping for all network segments. B. Applying centralized attribute-based security policies via Service Composer. C. Configuring each host manually to match security requirements. D. Disabling automation to ensure administrators make deliberate changes. Answer. Correct answer. B. Centralized attribute-based policy management ensures that security rules are automatically applied based on workload properties such as tags or group membership. This reduces manual intervention, prevents drift, and enforces consistent rules across the entire environment. In regulated industries like finance, such automation is critical for maintaining compliance and minimizing security risks. Question 17. While examining an NSX design for a large service provider, Aaron needs to ensure that tenants remain isolated while sharing the same physical infrastructure. Which NSX capability is key to achieving this? A. Creating separate underlay routing domains for each tenant. B. Using logical switches and distributed routing to segment traffic. C. Implementing a single global broadcast domain for all workloads. D. Assigning each tenant a dedicated NSX manager instance. Answer. Correct answer. C. NSX enables tenant isolation through logical networking constructs where each tenant's workloads reside on separate logical switches. Distributed routing ensures efficient traffic flow without happening, and isolation is preserved without requiring separate physical networks. This approach supports multi-tenancy while optimizing resource usage and operational scalability for the provider. Question 18. For the purpose of improving fault tolerance, an NSX architect suggests deploying multiple transport zones. What design advantage does this provide? A. Eliminates the need for redundancy in physical switches. B. Allows isolation of logical networks across different host groups. C. Automatically balances overlay workloads across all clusters. D. Simplifies the removal of VXLAN from existing segments. Answer. Correct answer. B. Multiple transport zones allow logical switches to be scoped differently, limiting which hosts can participate in specific virtual networks. This provides fault containment, simplifies management, and supports use cases where certain workloads or tenants should remain isolated at the transport level. It enhances design flexibility without adding physical segregation complexity. Question 19. As demonstrated by a failed logical switch deployment, HANA suspects the host preparation process was incomplete. Which step is essential for enabling NSX features on ESXi hosts? A. Installing VIBs for VXLAN, distributed routing, and firewall services. B. Configuring dedicated physical uplinks for every VM. C. Removing all existing vSphere distributed switch configurations. D. Assigning static IPs to each workload before activation. Answer. Correct answer. 8. Host preparation involves installing NSS-specific VIBs vSphere installation bundles on ESXi hosts to enable VCLAN encapsulation, distributed logical routing, and firewall capabilities. Without these modules, hosts cannot participate in NSX overlay networks or enforce distributed services, making host preparation a foundational prerequisite for any NSX deployment. Question 20. Evidence suggests that a sudden spike in web application traffic causes intermittent failures. The administrator considers using NSX edge load balancing. What benefit would this deliver? A. Direct layer 2 bridging between VLANs for higher throughput. B. Distribution of incoming requests across multiple application servers. C. Automated migration of workloads to higher capacity clusters. D. Replacement of all distributed firewall rules with a single policy. Answer. Correct answer. B. NSX edge load balancing distributes incoming network requests across multiple backend servers, preventing overload on a single instance and improving availability. By balancing traffic intelligently, it enhances performance, maintains user experience during traffic spikes, and supports redundancy, ensuring that service remains resilient even under unpredictable demand. Question 21. When analyzing a new application deployment, Nora creates logical switches for web, app, and database tiers in NSX. She wants to ensure tier-to-tier communication while preserving segmentation. Which configuration achieves this? A. Bridging the switches directly in the underlay network. B. Assigning identical VXLAN IDs to all tiers. C. Deploying a logical router to route between the switches. D. Configuring VMS in different tiers to share the same port group. Answer. Correct answer. C. A logical router enables routing between isolated layer 2 segments represented by logical switches. By deploying it, Nora maintains segmentation between tiers while allowing controlled communication. This design adheres to best practices for multi-tier applications, ensuring minimal exposure between layers and simplifying policy application without relying on underlay-based VLAN bridging. Question 22. Given the circumstances, Ethan needs to provide internet access for virtual machines in the development environment. Which NSX feature would meet this requirement securely? A. Configuring NAT services and an NSX Edge Services gateway. B. Creating a direct Layer 2 extension to the ISPs network. C. Using logical switches with identical IP subnets on each VM. D. Removing all firewall rules to allow unrestricted outbound traffic. Answer. Correct answer. A. The NSX Edge Services gateway can provide NAT functionality, translating internal private IP addresses to a public IP for internet access. This approach secures the environment by hiding internal addresses while maintaining controlled access to external networks, a key principle in protecting internal resources in development or production environments. Question 23. Throughout the course of a large-scale upgrade, Liam wants to ensure that all configuration changes are consistent across the NSX environment. Which action best supports this goal? A. Using vSphere distributed switch exclusively for all logical segments. B. Managing deployments through NSX Manager as the centralized control point. C. Directly editing the configuration on individual SXI hosts. D. Relying on default vCenter networking with NSX integration. Answer. Correct answer. B. NSX Manager is the single point for deploying, configuring, and monitoring NSX components. Centralized management ensures configuration consistency, prevents drift between clusters, and streamlines policy enforcement. By using NSX Manager, Liam avoids configuration errors and ensures that all changes propagate reliably throughout the environment. Question 24. From a historical standpoint, Sophia's troubleshooting why newly deployed workloads cannot communicate across different racks. She suspects VXLAN is involved. What issue would most likely cause this? A. Mismatched VTAP IP subnets between hosts. B. TU configured too high on overlay networks. C. VXLAN automatically bypassing routing requirements. D. Excess VLANs in the physical underlay network. Answer. Correct answer. D. If VTAP IP addresses are on mismatched subnets without proper routing, VXLAN tunnels cannot form, preventing communication across racks. VXLAN relies on correctly configured underlay routing to transport encapsulated traffic between endpoints. Ensuring that all VTAPs are reachable and correctly addressed is fundamental to maintaining overlay network functionality. Question 25. With respect to strengthening internal security, Olivia decides to apply NSX micro-segmentation in her data center. What is the primary advantage of this approach? A. Restricting traffic between workloads at a granular level. B. Eliminating the need for external security audits. C. Replacing physical switches with virtual switches entirely. D. Consolidating multiple tenants into one broadcast domain. Answer. Correct answer. A. Micro-segmentation allows administrators to apply fine-grained security rules directly to workloads, limiting lateral movement and reducing attack surfaces. This enables enforcement of zero-trust principles within the data center and ensures that security policies are applied consistently, regardless of workload location or mobility. Question 26. Despite the fact that overlay configurations appear correct, errands workloads still experience intermittent connectivity. Which diagnostic focus would most likely reveal the root cause? A. Checking MTU consistency across underlay paths. B. Reviewing virtual machine disk EO performance. C. Disabling or NSX firewall rules temporarily. D. Increasing VLAN ID ranges on the underlay switches. Answer. Correct answer. A. Overlay technologies like VCLAN require larger MTUs to accommodate encapsulation overhead. If MTU sizes are inconsistent across the underlay network, packets may be fragmented or dropped, leading to intermittent connectivity. Ensuring consistent MTU values end-to-end is critical for stable overlay network performance. Question 27. By comparing NSX and eSphere operations, Daniel wants to understand how network provisioning is affected. Which statement best describes the benefit of their integration? A. NSX automatically provisions logical networks tied to vSphere workloads. B. NSX replaces all vSphere networking constructs. C. vSphere hosts require manual mapping to NSX logical switches. D. NSX operates without any dependency on vSphere. Answer. Correct answer. A. Integration with vSphere enables NSX to dynamically provision and manage logical networks in conjunction with virtual machine deployments. This reduces manual configuration steps, ensures that networking policies follow workloads, and allows for more agile, software-defined networking in virtualized environments. Question 20. Taking into account application latency concerns, ME evaluates routing options in NSX. What is the main performance benefit of using a distributed logical router (DLR)? A. It centralizes routing to a single appliance for simplicity. B. It provides routing at the hypervisor level, avoiding happening. C. It replaces physical routers in the underlay network entirely. D. It applies firewall policies automatically to all routed traffic. Answer. Correct answer. C. It performs routing within the hypervisor kernel, enabling east-west traffic to be routed locally without sending it to a centralized appliance. This avoids happening, reduces latency, and improves bandwidth utilization. It is particularly beneficial in environments with high levels of internal workload-to-workload communication. Question 29. In light of recent developments, Emma's security team needs to dynamically assign firewall rules as VMS change roles. How does Service Composer achieve this? A. By creating static VLAN assignments in the underlay network. B. By defining groups based on VM attributes and applying policies automatically. C. By forcing all traffic through centralized inspection point. D. By replacing VTEPs with policy-driven switches. Answer. Correct answer. D. Service Composer enables administrators to define security groups using VM attributes such as names, tags, or OS types and automatically apply security policies to those groups. This allows rules to adapt dynamically as workloads change roles or locations, maintaining consistent protection without manual reconfiguration. Question 30. The relationship between physical and virtual networking in Jacob's hybrid cloud requires flexibility in workload placement. Which principle of network virtualization enables this? A. Assigning each VM static MAC address for easier tracking. B. Abstracting the physical network into logical software-defined components. C. Consolidating all workloads into single flat layer 2 network. D. Relying solely on hardware-defined routing protocols. Answer. Correct answer. B. Network abstraction allows the decoupling of logical network services from the underlying physical hardware. This enables workloads to be moved, scaled, or reconfigured without requiring physical network changes, supporting the agility and scalability needs of hybrid cloud deployments.